I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we are opening here our ADR meeting this evening, and Laura is in the council chambers. And Stephen Sutro and Mark Fritz. Let's just, if you guys could just hold on 1 second, we're obviously having audio problems. Let me see. Can the people on Zoom hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So we're good to go. Sorry about that.
All right, I'm turning on my microphone again. So I am Joey Buckingham. I'm an ADR member. This is,
Hi, Laura Dewar, ADR member.
and would the other ADR members like to introduce themselves?
Hi, Stephen Sutro.
Is Mark Fritz with us?
No, Mark Fritz and Mark Kuchenet are both recused from the item tonight, so they will not be joining us.
So they are not at the meeting? Okay.
Correct.
Great, okay, so we have the three of us, and I am the acting chair for this evening, because normally Mark Kuchenet is here, but he's recused, so it's on me tonight. So please bear with me, because also, this is the first time I've been in the council chambers since COVID began. And we're kind of working through the hybrid Zoom and in-person situation. So if your technology's not working, just speak up and let us know how we can best serve you. But anyhow, we are calling the meeting to order, and the next agenda item is the open time for public comments. Would anyone like to comment on anything?
I would. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Janet Redfield. This is my husband, Peter, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again. We attended last month's meeting, and we appreciate you listening to us this month. We have one concern with the new set of
I'm
plans.
sorry, Janet, can I interrupt you? This is a time to comment about something that is not on the agenda. If you have something, a comment or something to say about the item on the agenda, if you could just hold that comment until we hear that item.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is just anybody in the public who wants to be heard. This is the time to do it, but if it's specific to a project, you will have a little chunk of time.
Thank you.
Project. Okay, come back to us. All right. So is there anyone else who has general public comments to share with us? Nope, I do not see that. Okay, so we then move to the approval of minutes from the meeting of August 16th, 2022, and I have read them. I move to approve. Or wait, am I allowed to?
No, I think so, but I missed part of the meeting, so I don't think I should approve them.
Okay, well,
I mean, I can approve the part that I was.
Well, how about the part that you spoke?
I'll second the motion.
Great.
Okay, I read through them extensively, and I remember the meeting. Everybody said what they said they said. Okay, so let's approve those, second, third. How do we do that?
I think all it requires is the second, right, Rebecca?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so all good.
Okay, great. So we've approved the minutes, and now we are going to the planning application, 78 Shady Lane. And I believe that Rebecca will present to us the project, and then we'll.
Yes, thank you, Joey. So tonight I just have a verbal presentation. The ADR reviewed the project at the August meeting, and there were some comments that were made. Some of those comments included moving the garage from that rear yard, from the rear property line, so it met the setback of 10 feet per the municipal code allowing garages in a rear yard. Additionally, there was some comments about landscaping, and the applicant has added some landscaping to the project and moved that garage. At this point, that concludes my presentation, but I certainly am available for questions should anybody from the ADR have any.
Now would the architect like to make a presentation to us about specifically what has changed since our last review?
So, Will, would you like to make a presentation?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hear what's going on in the public space there.
I forgot
So-
to push my button. Would the architect like to make a presentation to us?
Sure, well, yeah, I mean, it's,
About what has changed? Thank you.
sure. So we responded to your concerns. So we moved the garage as noted. We added some landscape screening. My first submittal only screened the south neighbor. I was let know that I had missed screening the east neighbor, so that is probably on your latest drawings. We added some irrigation to make sure that those screens stay alive. And there was a comment that the front elevation needed a little bit of pep. So we enlarged the window and added some additional trim. We changed the color so that the house color is not so dominant. And I believe those were all the things that were suggested that we do. And so we've done that.
Questions of the applicant? Stephen, do you have any questions?
Nope.
I just have a question about the landscaping. What's the size of the screening that's getting put in?
On the corner where we have the photinia, those get up to about 12 feet. And the privets that are going to go by the garage will go about as high as the current privet goes, which is about 16 feet or so.
Hired a landscape architect to choose plants and size plants so that they are a for sure effective screening and to plan adequate irrigation for those plants.
Tatiana, is that something you want to speak to? Well, I'm not a licensed landscape architect, but during my university days, I minored in landscape design. So I'm I'm not ignorant of how plants work. I picked Photinia that grows especially tall and especially narrow, so it'll fit within the area between the proposed ADU and the fence. The privet, there's an existing privet. I just propose to add the same kind of privet. We know how they grow. We know that they're successful at that location. And irrigation, I don't know that we need a landscape architect to tell us that we need a drip line that feeds these trees every other day. I'm puzzled why we would need to get a professional landscape architect for such a small project.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Sorry, just another landscaping question. What size are the plants that you're putting in? Because I know it can take years and years for things to grow to like actually provide the screening they're intended to.
That's a good question. I didn't indicate that on the plan. We would get 1 gallon buckets. The Photinia especially is a very fast grower. So the screen will be at the 12 feet within 3 years. The privet is a little bit slower. If necessary, we can get larger cans, and maybe a 2 or 3 gallon plants if the town feels that that's necessary.
Okay, and then my last landscaping question is just, could you just go over which trees and plants are being removed and what they're being replaced with?
Okay, so originally we decided that we were going to leave all the existing trees with the exception of a black locust that's located right next to a grouping of redwoods. But we've since learned that in order to remove that, we would need to plant 3 or 4 other trees on this property. And that is pretty tricky seeing the amount of trees that are already on it. So we've decided that we're going to leave all the trees existing on property. So there will be no trees removed,
Including,
with the exception of a couple fruit trees for the ADU project.
So, sorry, so the fruit trees that are between the south neighbor are going to be removed? Is additional screening going to be put in there?
Yes, well, those fruit trees are positioned to be right where the ADU project is going to be. So that's the only reason they're going. And we are going to replace the one fruit tree with the Photinias that will screen the neighbors.
okay. Stephen, do you have any questions of the applicant?
No, I don't have any questions. I do have one question for the staff, for Rebecca. And I'm sorry if you said this and I couldn't hear. So the proposed garage in this kind of circumstance has a 10-foot rear setback. I think that's true. And then the side setback for the garage in this circumstance would be what? The normal setback?
No, the side setback still requires a variance. Originally, last month, it was a variance for the side and rear yard setback. This month, it's a variance for the side only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I understand that correctly. Thank you.
Sure.
So the 10 feet is supported by a garage.
Yes, you can have a garage if it's behind the house with a 10-foot rear yard setback.
Great. Any other questions by the ADR members? So open to public neighbors for comment now.
Janet, would you like to speak now?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. So our questions actually were about screening. We had walked the property a few times with the owner, And she had assured us that there was going to be proper screening behind the ADU as well as behind the garage. So the plan that I was looking at did not have any. So I just would like a little bit more detailed information. It looks as though you are going to put some behind the garage. Is there any, there was screening for the back of the ADU? Is that
Yeah.
planned as well?
Yeah.
And
Is that in the plan? I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. Can we pull up the plan and show it? Because the plan looks like it does not have anything indicated there. Am I looking
correct,
at the
that's
wrong plan?
what we're looking at. That's correct. We're looking at nothing behind the garage as well as nothing behind the ADU. So I would love to see like how many, because it's very obvious this, the Photinia super spread, the hedge, super hedge, it's very obvious how thick that will be because there's so many of them. I just like to see how many of them are planned for the back of the ADU as well as the back of the garage.
So the applicant revised the landscape plan yesterday, and it was emailed to the ADR members. It is not, it should be shown tonight. Will, do you have access to that, and can you share your screen, please?
Yes, I can. Let me bring it up.
And so they added, I can tell you what they did. They added landscaping to that rear property line, which is your shared property line, Janet. And there are,
Thank you.
there's 7 Chinese privet that are proposed, and then some Photinia, 7 Photinia proposed behind the ADU wall. So it will almost encompass that whole rear property line.
Okay, as soon as I get permission, I can bring the new plan up to share the screen.
You should be able to share your screen now, Will.
Okay. Okay, here it is. You now see that we've got the Photinia running all along the back. A small gap. This is the existing privet.
Mhm.
And then we're going to run a new row of privets to match the sky all the way across the back.
And Will, what would stand, excuse me, between the proposed garage and the left property line?
Here.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Since there wasn't an issue about privacy on the driving lane and the fact that the roof profile is fairly low at that point, and we figured that would be nice to have some access behind the garage, I left that alone. We can put some sort of vining thing, but that wouldn't really provide any higher screening unless the town or neighbors really want it, in which case we can install some lattice and run the vines up higher.
No. Is that a question for us? Was that, can I answer that?
Please.
Am I, yes. That's not necessary for the left side in terms of our opinion. I just had one quick question about the privet versus the Photinia. You mentioned that it takes 2 to 3 years for the privets. I was wondering why you chose those versus continuing the Photinia all the way across. Because
Right.
2 to 3 years. It's our concern that 2 to 3 years, that's a considerable amount of time to wait for screening. And the one that you have, it's really a very messy tree. We get the remnants of the present one on our side. So I was just wondering why you didn't go with the Photinia all the way across, which is more of a manicured hedge-like screening.
Variety, plus the fact that we had a privet there. I don't think that the owner would have a problem removing that privet and running Photinia all the way across, if that's what you would prefer.
I think that would be preferable. Thank you. mainly because it will grow quickly
Mhm.
and provide the screening we need. So thank you for that adjustment.
Of course.
And those were our concerns. This second draft cleared up all of our concerns, so thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Janet, are you finished with your comments?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, great. Do you folks? I think, is anyone else in line?
Will, if you could stop sharing, that'd be helpful for me to be able to see everybody on Zoom.
Yeah, hang on. Uh-oh, where'd you guys go? Oh, stop sharing.
I don't see anybody else on Zoom with their hand raised.
Oh, here, I'll raise my hand if I can get it onto the screen.
Okay.
Hi, Pedro Niguero here. I live 2 doors down from the subject property. I had sent a letter at the last meeting. I wasn't able to attend. My question is really kind of around the sort of the thinking behind and the reason for what appears to be taking a property that had most of the construction near the center of the property. And it seems like this plan sort of pushes everything out to the edges. And I'm struggling with the why behind that. I mean, there's currently a carport there, could easily be converted to a garage where that deck space is. Why is there this need to just sort of create this kind of oasis in the middle while pushing buildings out towards the neighbors, and creating what appears to be a bigger building profile from the street as well? Like, can someone speak to the rationale behind that?
Well, we did want to create an oasis in the backyard. Currently, that carport sits too close to the house. It is somewhat of an eyesore and doesn't park very well. What we wanted to do was to put in structure the garage that would better match architecturally the house. And the fact that it's at the rear of the property basically doesn't really impinge on the views from the street at all. The larger issue was that and the neighbors have come forward and said, it's like, hey, these are too close to our property. What can we do about that? So we are trying to accommodate that to the best of our ability. But that's why we push them to the back and to the sides.
Okay, so a couple of reactions to that. One is, so you are creating an oasis, but you're doing it at the expense of the neighbors. And two, that garage, I can see the story poles when I drive in and out. So if I can see the story poles, I would be able to see the structure. Whereas right now, the carport is not an eyesore from my perspective anyway, because I can't see it. So you have a carport that is hidden, as much of an eyesore as it may be to the someone on the property. You have a carport that is essentially hidden by the house, and now you're building a garage out in plain view. So, and once again, pushing it closer to all the neighbors and sort of gaining at their expense, it feels like. That's just my reaction to the plan.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public? Oh, so Dennis and Cheryl Unterman here in person with us.
Oh, great. Thanks, Rebecca. So I'd like to introduce myself, Cheryl Unterman. This is my husband, Dennis Unterman. So we've lived at 1 Locust Avenue in Ross for the last 35 years. So this proposed development is taking a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house to become a 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath house on one of the smallest lots in Ross. This is a 4% increase to the main residence, which is not minor, nor is it supported. There are no findings on the applicant's planning application to support the floor area ratio to be exceeded. There is no reduction of 93 square feet, which is a conversion of a nook to a covered porch, as shown on these plans, and the applicant was made aware of this in writing by the Town of Ross Planning Department in March, and yet they still show this on the plans. So in fact, there's an increase of total floor area ratio on this development, bringing it to almost 26%. So our main concerns are the second story creates unnecessary privacy, noise, light, bulk impacts. The proposed addition changes the direction of a minimum use bedroom to a maximum use bathroom on the upper story by flipping the layout on the upper story. The size and the direction of this upper story should be addressed and privacy windows used to be installed. The first story additions create unnecessary privacy, noise, and bulk impacts. The proposed additions change a low-use sunroom, an outdoor space, and a bedroom nook to maximum use bathrooms. A reduction of the half bath will reduce the floor area ratio and will prevent the build-out of the outdoor space shown here when the other bath is moved. Privacy windows need to be installed in all bathrooms, and the south side elevation plans are also wrong as they do not show a proposed bathroom window.
Their last sentence, they do not show a what?
Proposed window. If you look at the south elevation, there's no window, and yet on the plans, it shows a window. Toilet, I believe. And, sorry, I'm not an architect. I looked at these plans
That's
pretty
okay,
closely.
I missed what
And
you
I'm,
said.
yeah, I've got a new retaining. So there are no variant findings that can be made for these increase in floor area ratio. And I'm speaking to the landscaping plan that we were given and the only one that we've seen until something today. But the addition of 11 unspecified size shrubs screening the proposed ADU on this project with no irrigation is not a detailed landscape plan, nor is it viable to plant something and not water it. A detailed landscape plan showing irrigated trees and plants to screen this development is necessary. Mulch is not landscaping. And I'll speak more to some landscaping in a minute. I'd like to show you the photos and the impact from our residents that Rebecca so kindly is pulling up for us here. This first photo is a photo from our kitchen window, looking at these proposed additions, primarily there on the first story there. This is the proposed additions for the whole of development, and as you can see, these additions are all to the south side of the residence, as well as we will have an ADU within 4 feet of our property, just to the right of this as well. And all of these additions were pushed to the south side, even though there's plenty of room, other areas of this residence to build out, but not at the level of 14 and 26%. I think there's a couple landscaping ones. Maybe 2 more. This is a photo of the annual bulb garden that's shown on the landscape plan. As you can see, there's a few bulbs that might come up. This garden has not been watered since it was purchased, and I think there's one more. That was the last one. That is a photo of the iris bed that is shown on the landscape plan, which is basically a couple dead irises. And I feel I'm unclear of how this happens, but we were given plans to look at for a landscape plan for the meeting. This is the first time we're seeing this new plan. I don't think that we can support that or try to address it tonight. I mean, I am going to introduce my husband. His family's been in the nursery business for 100 years. He's been in the landscaping business. He could talk to this, but I don't feel like that we have the capability to do that. And I think they came forward with plans that specifically stated that they did not want to irrigate nor plant anything here. And I think we need to have the time to review that. So we are asking you to reject this development as it's presented, that we go back and look at these increases and the problems in the plans and the floor area ratios that have been presented here. And according to him, 1 gallon plants are not going to screen, but like I say, I don't think that we can speak to that tonight, unless you have specific questions that he could probably answer.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
On the north side of your home, how far are you from the property line?
Pretty close. When our kitchen, you can see where is the closest part of the house, and I spoke to this at the prior meeting, that when we developed out our backyard, we stepped in twice when we did our development. We took a laundry area, and so that
Picture there, how far is it from the property
we're
line?
probably 4 feet to the fence.
Okay, that's.
And so they're coming out 8 feet towards,
And
closer to us.
How far is this development from the property line?
I think it's on the plan.
Yeah, let's look at that.
The roof eave is 15,
foot
is
setback.
more than 15 feet. So it meets the required setback. It's not, that proposal is not going past the existing wall at that one side there, this side.
Right. The other proposal, we also speak to it, is a walkway coming all the way down the same side, south side to the ADU as well.
Okay, that's all.
So, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, so back to any other questions of the public? Or anyone who wants to comment on this project?
I don't see anybody
All right,
else.
in the
Thank
absence
you.
of that, let's bring it back to the ADR for questions and decisions.
I have a question.
Sure.
And this is for Rebecca and Alex, I think. In your analysis of the code that applies to the project, does the project require any variances for the construction related to the house, for FAR or anything related to the house?
No, it does not, based on the plans that are submitted.
Okay.
So who in the ADR would like to go first with the final recommendation?
I guess, sorry, one more thing to delay the commentary. Could we look at the elevation that faces that direction that we were just looking at photographs from the neighboring house?
South elevation.
Thank you. South, yes.
Page, Will, could you share that, please? That is,
Yes. Okay, this is the south elevation. This is, and I did make an error. This window needs to be over here. So I basically misplaced the window. So this window is about 3 feet off this wall. It should be 3 feet off this wall. The rest of this wall is blank. This is the existing. This is the proposed. A lot of window space, very little window space.
Great, thank you.
so who would like to go first on ADR with their recommendations? I will. Okay, so first of all, I feel like a project of this magnitude, there's no way, I'm not even sure how it got to us without a landscape architect involved and a full landscape plan. There's way too many privacy concerns to be left to the vagaries of 1 gallon plants of various species that we're kind of not sure of. We're not sure how they're being irrigated. Because this so much impacts the privacy of the neighbors, this project has to be planted heavily if it's going to succeed. Especially, we're not allowed to talk about it, but there is a big ADR going in, or ADR going in 4 feet from the property line. So this, in my book, I don't think this project can be approved without a really good landscape plan from a landscape architect. That's number one. Number two, the garage where it's sited is fine. It's, I think, because, you know, the 4-foot setback is on an easement, which is a road, but that has to be heavily planted. Referring back to my comment about a landscape architect and a landscape plan. The improvements that are suggested within the house and the FAR, that all sits well with me because they are out of the setback, they're adhering to the FAR requirements, and unfortunately, Dennis and Cheryl, I feel like you are so close to the property line that they are within their rights to do that, and it very much impacts you. Hold on, let me just finish I just need to because they're taking notes on what I say. So I am hoping that requiring the applicants to do a really good landscape plan will address a lot of these concerns. It's much too sketchy for such a big development to just be like maybe 1 gallon photinia or something like that. So those are my comments about the garage, the proposed development, and then in terms of style, which is actually what we are supposed to be opining on most of the time, I do find that the less white color is great. I think the dark brown trim and baseboards really is sort of not attractive with the gray roof. It sort of had like the dark brown and the dark gray roof, and then this beige color stucco really don't hang together. And I would advise that that trim color approximate more of the gray roof. And I would also recommend that when you look at the hold on just a second, everyone. The old west elevation had siding on that little portion, the first story portion down to the right. And there was kind of a charm about these mixed materials, the shingles, the siding, and the stucco. I recommend that little first story portion retain siding as it had before, so that this whole thing is just not a big stucco development. So those are my comments. Respectfully submitted. Laura? Stephen?
Stephen, do you need to do your comments now, or should I go ahead?
That's okay. You can go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if you had another meeting.
Someone else is taking care of that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I mean, appreciate the change of moving the garage off the rear property line. And I think the main things for me are the landscaping concerns. The addition to the house seems within reason, and if it's not exceeding the allowable FAR from transferring the carport, then we'll have to go with that. But I think the landscaping is a concern, and it doesn't seem to be taking the neighbors' privacy issues very seriously. I think, I mean, I just Googled it because I don't really know plants that well, but for example, a 5-gallon, I think you had said a 1-gallon plant, a 5-gallon petunia, or what? Photinia comes at 20 inches high, so that definitely wouldn't do anything for like years. So I think you'd have to maximize, you know, like Joey said, if you have a landscape architect that can really like fine tune this to ensure that we're approving something that actually addresses these concerns. And one of the design principles is like increasing the greenness of a property. And it doesn't seem like this is doing that at all, just leaving all the dead gardens and plants and things. So, yeah, I mean, I think those would be the main concerns. The one other one other thing I was just kind of looking at with the elevations is the different styles of windows, like why some of them are just double hung windows and some have like all the muttons. So I don't know if the architect could kind of, are you guys reusing some windows and adding some new windows, or?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's the reason for the two different styles?
Exactly. It's a cost saving measure. In the back, where there's nobody to really see anything, we omitted the fancy trim, but otherwise they will all be the same windows. The only difference is the trim around them on the sides and back.
Okay. Oh, and then just my last comment, I just remembered, for the garage, the detailing that you have at the front side of the garage,
Yes,
would it be possible just to kind of do that on the rear side as well?
we could, sure.
That would help.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Steven?
Okay, I can just echo your comments, essentially. I think that I understand the privacy concerns brought up by the neighbors. I think that it's just the circumstances of the small lots, and that's kind of what privacy impacts occur as the lots are built out in the way that the zoning intends. And so I understand that the new bulk is impressive, and it won't. I don't think you'll find a landscaping solution that will screen the second story there. But regardless of that, I think the bulk and mass that's proposed here is contextually appropriate and it meets code, and so that it seems okay to me. The planting obviously needs to be submitted. I agree. I was thinking that we maybe could think about approving the garage with a stipulation that planting be put on the side, even though it is an easement. I think it's nice if that side be buffered. I understand you want a path to the rear, but you are, I think I agree with the neighbor 2 doors away that said you would like to create an oasis in the center, and so you're pushing the structures that you'd like to have to the edges. And so when I think about the variance findings and kind of what hardship is there that substantiates breaking the rule, I guess the hardship is just the size of the lot. And I think if it were not for the vehicular easement there or the driveway there, that really you couldn't make findings for placing the garage so close to the property line. And I think that that bulk should be buffered by planting. And so in a planting plan, if that's a request that it come back with a planting plan, I think it should include planting on that side of the garage. That's all.
So let's wrap it up and present our final opinions to the town council on how we would,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
It seems like the ADR is okay with sort of the project minus the landscape plan. Would, instead of it coming back to a full ADR review, would you be willing to work with myself and you, Joey, and the applicant on creating a landscape plan independent of coming back to a full ADR review?
I'd be willing to do that, but it's spending a lot of my private time reviewing stuff that should have come in the first time around.
Okay,
But
that's fair.
I will do it to help the applicant, but like, there's a huge gulf between what's shown and what needs to be shown, in my personal opinion.
Well, we can bring it back. It was a question. and-
No, I think Joey's saying yes, but under protest.
Yeah, like,
I don't,
I want to see something.
you don't want to look at it until it's a fully developed
Right,
landscape plan.
And one
Right.
meeting, like, did you get what you need to do?
Sure.
And let's
Right.
get it done.
I'll use, right,
I don't want to see it looking like this again.
gotcha.
But yeah, we don't have to do an ADR meeting if we're all on board that the garage and its location would be fine. The style of the house needs to be very much looked at, and there needs to be a landscape architect.
Right.
Is everyone on board with those three recommendations? Stephen, Laura? And I'll be fine to meet with them privately.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Sure.
Sorry. I need to bring something forward with the floor area, and maybe if you could bring up the plans, Rebecca, but we keep going back and forth that there is no variance. But in March, the planning talked about the 93 square foot is not a reduction. And if you can see on the plan, the applicant showing that they're taking away a nook and putting it into a covered porch. And that 93 square feet is not a reduction. And that was told to the applicant in March of 2022, and they've decided to keep that on there. By reducing that is how they're saying that they are reducing the floor area and staying within the guidelines. They are not within the guidelines. And if you do the numbers, they are not. They're over, and that's how we're getting to the 26%. So it's hard on this 3 minutes to show you all of this, but I can show anybody these calculations and show you this. But they are in fact going over the floor area that they have right now. And so I do not believe that this can go forward the way it's shown, because that, and the architect can talk to it because he was on the letter with them. It is not a reduction. And they've,
Talking about the 7-foot
by 13 and a
notch
half
there
foot.
by the kitchen that's then
No.
filled in.
No, it's in the front of the house. It's, on page A3, if you look at the existing house, there's a nook. And that nook, they're trying to show as a covered porch now. And that was brought up in March, that is not a takeaway. They can have the porch, but it's not a takeaway at those 93 square feet. And again, you guys, this is how they're getting a 2-bedroom, 1 bath to a 3-bedroom, 3.5. It's in these numbers.
Sorry, the nook counts towards their existing floor area. The proposed porch does not, because it is not 10 feet in depth.
It is 10 feet in depth. It's 13 and a half feet.
It's 13 and a half by what? What's the other dimension?
Whatever this dimension is, it's like 13.3 feet.
By what?
I had that conversation with the architect. It's not on the plans, but he indicated that it is not 10 feet in depth.
13.3.
Yes, it's 7'3" in depth
Yeah.
and about 16 feet wide.
Right, so we're talking depth, not width.
Yeah.
And so we go off the plans that are presented to us, and they are showing that
And-
they are reducing it.
No, and then the planner also said that the entire porch roof and supports need to be removed for the floor area. And that was the town planner in March. And that roof line is still there. And the architect said that he wanted to preserve the, what do you want to
So-
call it, the historical part of the house.
I am going to bring this, I'm going to let this be resolved between Rebecca and the applicant and work out these square footage. It's a little bit too much
I know,
right now
I know.
tonight to figure out what went wrong there. It's 93 square feet.
That
But-
93 square feet is an extra bathroom to here, and that impacts our south side of our house. And I'm sorry, if that 93 foot's gone, they can reduce something of one of those bathrooms on this house.
Let's let the people who work for the town figure that out, but I appreciate your comments, and we will for sure check into that before proceeding and make sure that that's legitimate or that it's supported with town rules. That's the best we can do. Okay. So I think we have our recommendation for what needs to be done on this project. It's on the cusp of needing to come back, but I think Pardon me?
I think that, either way that we decide to go is okay. I just will point out that this is not the end all to the project. It also goes to town council and is reviewed through another public hearing. Additionally, when we take projects to town council, the town of Ross has a standard condition of approval that allows for up to 3 years that landscaping, the town can require additional landscaping should screening be needed. So that is a standard condition of approval that we always put in design review resolutions. I'm not, saying to go either way tonight, but I just wanted to provide that, those facts.
Beach, you're here in the audience. Would you say that, given what we know, pardon me, and that if I were to work with them, if we were to work with them and they come back with a landscape architect to us, and we are able to either recommend it or not, is that ready to go to town council, or would you rather see it go back to design review before it comes to you?
That's a hard question to answer, because we would prefer to have and that would simplify things a little bit, but I don't want to simplify at the cost of doing it right.
I would just like to add that I would feel more comfortable prior to going to town council to have a fully vetted, reviewed landscape plan by a landscape architect. I think this is the one thing that's holding up this project. And we all know that landscape architects can do, incredible work. And I'm happy to bring that back to a full ADR review, or I'm happy to work with the applicant and get it to a point. This is the second hearing for this project. I think I understand what a robust landscape plan looks like, and work with the applicant on that, and then either bring it back to you individually, Joey, when it is ready for a full review. But I'm also happy to bring it back to ADR. It doesn't.
So I am going to speak up on that respectfully. I don't want that on me, just
Okay.
personally, on such a big project. I don't want to have some private, advisory side job of mine advising these clients or applicants. I think that it needs to come back to ADR with a proper landscape plan by a landscape architect, which it should have had at the beginning, but let's slot them in for the beginning of a meeting and do
Sure.
it quickly.
Yep.
But that allows all of their neighbors to see it. I mean, this is going to be some sort of backroom dealing with me, telling them, yeah, that's cool, that's not cool, that's cool. Their neighbors need to see it, because it's going to greatly affect their lives.
Sure.
So that would be if Stephen, if you and Laura are good with that. Otherwise I'm meeting with them throughout the next month, and I would prefer to have the support of all of you.
Fine.
And hopefully the others.
Yeah,
could
that's
see it
fine.
as well.
Fine.
Let's do that.
Great.
Okay, so what's the next step? We would bring the, just say this needs to be continued with those recommendations.
Exactly, as discussed tonight.
All right. So is that understood, Will and Tatiana?
Yes.
Questions?
No.
All right, great. We will see you soon. So what's the next thing on the agenda, everybody? I think we're getting close to the end. We don't have any conceptual advisory design review this evening. How about information and discussion?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Are there any new agenda items?
I don't have any. Do any of you guys?
I do not. Okay, good night. So I would move to adjourn.
Second that.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.